Welcome to week 2. We are going to start with what is normal if we didn't have healthy attachments? And the answer is simple. It is whatever you're doing now to get your needs met is normal. However you handled it as a child was normal, and however you handle it today is normal. That's what you need to understand is trauma, complex trauma, attachment trauma have outcomes that are personally based on each individual's being, who they are, their constitution, their experience. It is all perfectly normal. Humans don't really have wrong reactions to trauma. However, we are handling it is normal. So you can give yourself a break. That also means, and I want to make this very, very clear, that this also includes any acts of trauma you may have committed as a child. Sometimes, and this is also true in just regular PTSD cases, in wars, where when we are in these traumatized places, we're in these states of minds that are beyond our brain functioning properly, right? As I've mentioned, when we are in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, our brains aren't working. Our brains are in overload, and we are defaulting to very primitive parts of our brain down in the bottom, the critter brain, you might have heard it, or monkey brain. And we default into that part of our brain using very rudimentary responses, very animalistic type responses. So that means that we may have hurt other people. If we were a kid being hurt, we very likely hurt others around us. It's a trauma response. Whatever you did as a child or adult, because of your trauma or because of how you were experiencing life in that moment and how you were taught to respond, is normal. There is nothing abnormal about anything you've done or any way that you have responded because of trauma. It is all normal. Knowing that in your heart will help everything, help you forgive those parts of yourself that maybe did some things that you aren't so proud of or that even disgust you, right? We fawn. Not only is this not fighting an assailant or an attacker, or giving in or being okay with, even enjoying acts. There are a lot of sexual abuse situations that are not painful or scary, that do physically feel good, and so we can go back and beat ourselves up for having an experience that we now don't see it as. And I'm going to say this more than once, but one of my favorite sayings is, don't allow what you know now to change the way you felt then. And what that means is, because you are an adult now, because you have a different way of looking at life, because you understand trauma a little bit more, don't go back and beat yourself up because as a child, you did some things that you're not proud of, right? And these, again, this includes going with an abuser, agreeing to the abuse, not fighting, right? That is fawn. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And fawn is agreeing. Fawn is when you go with it and you are okay with it and you want to please the person that is hurting you. And so you will do anything. That is a trauma response. It is not weakness, it is survival. And in those moments, not only is that how you survived, but for you and your brain and your experience, it was the best way that you could prevent damage from being worse than it was going to be. This also, as I mentioned, excuse me, affects if you have anger from it. So if you're being hurt and you have no outlet and you are stuck in the freeze or the flight where you leave mentally, which can also be freeze because you can't leave a situation as a child a lot of the time, you will then take those anger feelings, that anger, that hurt, and you may hurt somebody else. You may partake in things that lead to really horrible things for other people. Again, I know it's hard in the beginning, but these are trauma responses. And that means that at that moment, you were doing the best you could. And so I don't want anybody to know the feelings that you have now. I don't want that to affect how you felt then. Honor yourself then. You were little. You did your best, even if your best was not something that you are happy with now. So just remembering that. And now we are going to talk a little bit about boundaries.